Well, we've been kind of talking, nibbling around the edges about finding our rest and peace in God today. Our scripture readings directed us toward being still in God and finding rest in Jesus. So you might be a little surprised that today I'm going to talk to you about a bit of a difficult subject. I want to talk to you today about the war. And with all due respect to the good folks of the Ukraine, I'm not going to be talking about the Russian invasion of the Ukraine. I'm not going to be talking about any of the wars that are happening around the world, any of the wars that our nation has been involved in throughout history. I'm going to be talking about the kind of wars that each and every one of us battle with on a daily basis, the wars that happen within. You see, right now I'm in a bit of a battle, a bit of an internal war in my own life. And it's a battle between, on the one hand, doing, and on the other hand, being. Inside me, there's this battle between these two entities. This one that wants me to do more, achieve more, accomplish more, get more done. On the other side, my faith self, my spirit, is longing to do less. It's longing to be still in God, longing to be still and to know God at deeper levels. I can hear the battle going on quite a bit right now. It's summertime when the season wants to slow me down. Things seem to be going a little bit slower in the summer, don't they? We ease up a little bit. Some people take vacations. We go on breaks. The planting of spring is done, and now it's just a little bit of tending the garden as things are growing kind of on their own. And so there's this kind of seasonal slowdown. And you know what happens in my little mind? Wow, look how slow things are going. I could get a lot done right now. I want to fight the season. I want to do more. It's like, oh, I could get this done. I could get this done. I can lift up my music journey again. I can do some more recording with this free time. And oh, look, I can get my annual worship planning done. I don't know if you know that each year during the summer, I plan out the entire calendar year, every single Sunday, what the readings will be, what the hymns are, so Nancy and choir can work on these things. I pick the themes, and I'm thinking, great, look, things are slowing down. Now I can do these things. It's a battle between doing and a battle between being. When Beth and I first got engaged, my parents said to Beth, I should say they warned Beth. They said, Beth, in life there are dreamers and there are doers. Mark's a dreamer. We sure hope you're a doer. But the truth is, Mark's a dreamer and a doer. I'm one of those people, perhaps like you, who, if you can dream it, you know you can achieve it, said William Arthur Ward many years ago. If we can dream it, then we can achieve it. And so Mark has this ability to dream it and see the possibilities, but Mark doesn't have the smarts enough to know maybe you don't have to do everything you dream. You don't have to achieve everything you can envision. And nor do you have to go to your friends and say, maybe I don't have to do this, but you could get it done. Because that just makes us a nuisance to others, doesn't it? No, it's an internal battle between doing and being. I like to remember or remind myself, I am not a human doing. I am a human being. But you know, quite honestly, I don't think this is a battle I fight by myself. I imagine everyone in this room at one time or another has engaged in that very same battle. And after all, we live in this culture where we celebrate productivity. In America, we have a certain pride about how much we can produce, how much we've produced, what we've made for the world. We pride ourselves on being a get-her-done nation. And in some ways, I think we should pride ourselves. You think about the number of things that here in America we have achieved, accomplished, and shared with the rest of the world. You think of the number of contributions in science and technology that the get-her-done culture of the United States has shared with the rest of the world. We ought to take some pride in that. At the same time, it can be kind of seductive to think that's all we are, a get-her-done nation. In fact, I think we've paid a price for being a nation that is as productive as ours. for being a get-her-done nation. When you think about it, we take less vacations than pretty well any other nation in the developed world. We work more hours than most other people in other developed nations around the world. And when you look at the surveys, the polls of people's happiness and satisfaction in nations around the world, I looked at the list today. The top 25 countries. You know where we are on that list? 25. Nowhere. We don't even show up in the list of the top 25 happiest nations on the earth. Now, I do take that poll with a certain grain of salt. You know, they've gathered up information from all over the internet to come up with this list. And those at the top, sorry Canada, you're not in the top 5 either. So you are in the top 10. You're 10. But those in the top 5, they're countries like Denmark, Norway, Sweden. And I'm thinking to myself, that can't be right. Those places are really cold. How can you be happy in a place that cold? But there they are. And we're not. We're not there. We celebrate our productivity, our being a get-her-done nation, yet we have fewer vacations. We're less happy. We look at longevity. We don't live as long as people do in other countries. I think we pay a price sometimes for forgetting that we're not just humans doing, but we're also human beings. And there are times we need to rest. In fact, I believe there are people in this world, in this nation, who get downright offended when you suggest maybe we might work less. Maybe we might have a holiday every now and then. In fact, I remember about a year or so ago, during Lent, or right before Lent, one of my students at the Savannah College of Art and Design gave a speech in my class, a persuasive speech on why we ought to take a social media fast. And she's speaking to 18 to 22-year-olds. And she talked about how social media was so invasive in her life. And she talked about how social media, the more time we spent scrolling through the social media, more time we spent in front of the blue light of the screen, the higher our levels of anxiety, the higher the rate of depression. And I'm so impressed that this 20-year-old student is challenging other 20-year-olds to take a break. And when she was finished, the rest of the class are going, yeah, you're right. I'm tired of it. I need a break too. Well, I went home later that day, and I shared on Facebook with a group I belong to, Presbyterian Church Leaders. It's for pastors and Presbyterian church educators. And I said, hey, if we want to understand what's going on with this younger generation, let me share with you what one of my students in my class said today. She wants to take a social media break, a fast during Lent. You can give up chocolate, you can give up drinking, but she wants to give up social media altogether. And the rest of the class agreed. They wanted to give it up too. They said it was really making them tired and depressed and anxious. And just sharing that with you, what do you think? Well, I woke up the next morning and my little notifications was there in my Facebook. Somebody had responded to that post. And the very first post was from a young pastor about 35 years of age. I know this because I checked, who is this guy? I looked, what's their story? And this young pastor was, you might call it mansplaining, I call it preacher-splaining. He was preacher-splaining me. He's gone, this is absolutely ridiculous. Social media is the way of the church. It's the way of the future, and we need to be more in touch with young people. And I'm like, dude, I'm just sharing with you what young people are telling me, and you're putting me down for this, and all of a sudden I'm feeling terrible. I'm like, why did I even bother posting? This person's chewing me out. Now there's other people joining the choir chewing me out. No, we can't live without social media. Then I noticed what time he posted that comment. It was 1 a.m. And so I said to him, I didn't call him dude. I called him Reverend Dude. I said, Reverend Dude, I said, the mere fact that you're giving me reproach and correction on this comment that was really just me sharing what's going on with some young people who are tired of social media, the mere fact that you made this comment at 1 a.m. says maybe you need a break from social media too. Can I get an amen? Amen. There you go. I don't think I'm in this battle alone. I think we all struggle with this battle between doing and being. We struggle with it not only in a kind of a social way, but in a digital way in this day and age. So nowadays we celebrate this whole work from home culture. Look, I can work from home, but trust me, if you're working from home, your work is now part of your home, which therefore means your home isn't much of a home anymore. You got to work really hard to protect the work time and the work space so that you can still have home, you can still have friends, you can still have family. You remember when the iPhone first came out? They promised us the world in the palm of our hand. What they didn't tell us is, if you've got the world in the palm of your hand, you also have work in the palm of your hand. And if you've got work in the palm of your hand whenever or wherever you are, there will be people who expect you to work in all times, in all places. Now, on the one hand, I think there's much to celebrate in our get-her-done nation. At the same time, I think there's a balancing that we need to have between doing and being. I think that's why God's Word is so important for us today. Some people say, Mark, come on, the Bible, Jesus' words 2,000 years ago, the Psalms, 3,000 years ago. Does it really hold water in this day and age? Are you kidding me? I think it holds more water today, perhaps, than it did when the psalmist first wrote those words, "Be still and know that I am God." The psalmist invites us, challenges us, actually gives us an imperative to do it. Be still and know that I'm God. I think we need that more than ever, to find some stillness in God. We want to know God at deeper levels. We need to be still in order to know God. That's not to say don't do anything. It doesn't mean quit your job, be lazy, whatever. But it does mean we need to find some times in our day, each and every day, where we can be still and know God. Times in our week where we can be still. Times in the season to honor the dog days of summer. To be still, or at least a little less busy, so that we can know God at deeper levels. God who wants to bless us with some rest. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." How many times do we try to solve our burdens on our own without just drawing close to Him, being still with God and knowing who God is and finding our rest in God? Sometimes we need that stillness to recalibrate the spirit, to let our spirit catch up with our bodies, so to speak. Some of you may remember I shared a story with you a couple years back about a missionary in Africa many years ago, and he was driving from one village to the next down this old dirt road and through some of the scrubby areas of rural areas in Africa. And as he's bouncing along this dirt road, moving from village to village, he sees this African man, an Afrikaner, sitting under a tree in some shade by the side of the road. And the missionary stops his Jeep, pulls over to kind of the side, and he says, "Hey, where are you headed?" And the man said, "Well, I'm on my way to the next village." And the missionary says, "Well, get in the Jeep. Come on, that's where I'm heading. I can get you there in half an hour, 45 minutes. And the Afrikaner says, No, you go on. I'm fine. I'm walking." And the man said, "No, seriously, get in the Jeep. It's not a problem for me. I'll give you a lift." And the Afrikaner says, "Sir, thank you. That's very kind of you. But you see, I've traveled a long way today, and now I'm resting here in the shade so that my spirit can catch up to my body." I think God gives us those opportunities for our spirits to catch up to our bodies. Sometimes it's the dog days of summer. Sometimes it's a Sunday morning in worship. But the gifts are all around us all the time. I don't know if any of you do the same thing that Beth and I do when a rain comes, particularly in the summer. We might be sitting on the couch watching a movie on television, or binge watching a series on some sort of platform, and we hear a few rumbles outside. A good old summer storm moving in the evening. And then we hear some rain start to fall and start to tap lightly on the roof. And more often than not we'll pause or even turn off the television. We'll say, let's go look out the window. Let's watch the rains come in. And I think to myself about the billions and billions and billions of dollars that the entertainment industry spends on keeping us distracted or giving us something interesting to watch. And a summer storm moves in and we turn it off. Don and I were talking this morning about those rains and how much peace they bring to us. And Don said something rather beautiful, and I said, I'm going to quote you on this. He said, you know, if we can be still when those rains come, we'll hear music behind the rains. He said, it's like a piano playing all around us. When God says, be still and know that I am God, what a gift. What a gift for us to be still, especially for us doers, for us get-her-done folks. A gift that allows us just to take a moment, a little bit of time here and there to be still and know God. God will call us to it through a summer rain or some hot days, the dog days of summer. But you know what? I don't think be still and know that I'm God is just for us as individuals. When the psalmist says that God wants us to be still and know that God is God, he's talking about a city. Remember, there is a city whose streams make, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God. There's a river in the midst of the city. He's talking about the city, the people of God. He's talking about a collective, not just individuals, not me and my personal private Jesus. He's not talking about me and my personal private religion. He's talking about the people of God. And there is a river that runs through the midst of our city, our faith community, our nation. And it makes us happy if we will be still long enough to drink from the streams that flow into the city of God. Then he says, be still. And we might add people. Be still, people. Be still, church. Be still, America. And know that I am God. It's not just about you or you as individuals. It's about us, isn't it? Many of you here in this room are old enough to remember a day and age when almost everybody went to church on a Sunday morning. And if they didn't go to church on a Sunday morning, they maybe went to synagogue on a Saturday. Or if you're like my best friend who is Roman Catholic, he went to Mass early on Saturday evening. And he said, this way I get forgiveness out of the way and then I can go party on Saturday night. That was his twisted Roman Catholic sense of humor. But the point is, there was a time when we were still together in this nation. When we were still together. We weren't all Presbyterians, we weren't all Baptists, we weren't all Catholics, we weren't all Jewish, but we were all still together as a nation. Some of you are old enough to remember there was a time when we went to school, the day didn't begin until we had a silent moment, and then we said the Lord's Prayer together. And when we got to high school and they were kind of getting a little antsy about prayer in school because they thought the Lord's Prayer was only a Christian prayer and they weren't smart enough to know that it was a Jewish prayer that Jesus brought into our lives, they started having different spiritual readings, but it was still spiritual readings. We as a school were still together. We'd have some Christian readings, we had Jewish readings, we had New Testament, we had Now Testament. Now Testaments are kind of faith teachings from people in our own day and age. But we were still together. We had a collective moment where we reflected spiritually together. We had a collective moment where we were silent together. I think we've lost a lot of that in our day and age. Oh, there's still room for you to be personally quiet and personally still, but I wonder if our nation, I know our nation could be blessed if we could find ways of being still together as a people. That doesn't mean you all have to be Presbyterian or you all have to be Jewish or Roman Catholic, but what if we were spiritually still together as a nation? I know that memory fades, and some of you may agree, not only that memory fades, but you may agree that maybe 40 or so, 50 years ago, things weren't as good as we remember sometimes. We tend to, look at our history through some rose-colored glasses. But I don't remember us as a people being as divided 50 years ago as we are today. I don't remember that. I know people had opinions. I remember Nancy Davis, Ronald Reagan's daughter, talking about how Democrats and Republicans used to gather at her parents' house all the time. They disagree, sometimes vehemently, but they always walked away as friends. They didn't demonize each other. They didn't divide each other, American from American, based on their particular politics. I don't know, by the way, Ronald Reagan was a Presbyterian who attended a Disciples of Christ Christian Church, if you didn't know or remember that. But I think there was a blessing for us as a nation when we had a collective time to worship together or to be still together. Back in the 90s, I had the opportunity of attending the United Church of Canada's General Council. That's where they did all their politics every year or two. And I remember just how eye-opening it was for me to see just how political the church was. It was not much different than what goes on in D.C. You had representatives from different districts and regions and presbyteries and different agendas. People wanted this achieved, they wanted this passed. And so for a week or so, they kind of lobby each other and they'd try to get people to vote a certain way. And I remember every morning we'd come into this big arena where General Council was held, and people were buzzing and murmuring about what was coming up on the docket that day and how are you going to vote, and maybe I could pressure you a little to vote this way. And I remember they began, though, every day with worship, by being still together. I remember the worship leaders at that general council would come up onto the platform, and they didn't tap the microphone and say, "Would you all please come together now? We're going to have worship." People are still running around the room doing their politics, but the worship leaders, simply stood in front of a microphone. And one person very quietly began to sing, "Be still, be still, be still and know that I am God. For I am exalted in the nations and on earth. Be still and know that I am God." And slowly, as the worship leaders sang that, people began to settle down a bit. They moved back to their table groups, and now a few more would join them as the worship leaders were singing, "Be still, be still, be still and know that I am God." Until finally we had this conference room, this arena with 700, 800, 900 people singing together, "For I am exalted in the nations and on earth. Be still and know that I am God." Friends, maybe the most radical, most political thing that we can do as the people of God is to be still together and to encourage others to be still with us. Don't keep it a secret that you're going to church on a Sunday morning. Don't keep it a secret that you're worshiping online today. Let people know that I'm being still and I'm being with God today. And what if we shared with each other, "Hey, do you pray when you wake up in the morning? I pray when I wake up in the morning." And maybe if you're praying in the morning and I'm praying, we can pray for each other. I think we need to be still together to know who God is, and we might know the blessings of being still together. And maybe, just maybe, when we're still together, that God who causes wars to cease on the earth will cause the war within us, the one between doing and being. Maybe God will cause that war to cease as well. Praise be to God.